Hello, BookTube. I'm here with a bit of a book haul. Received some books in the post yesterday and today. We'll start it with yesterday's offerings. And I ordered this a week or so ago. It's Love's Cold Returning, John Clare's 1841 Odyssey from Essex to Northamptonshire by Ellis Hall and Bridget Somke, maps by John Harris, and illustrated by Pam Smythe. It was published last year in 2019 by 1381. I'd never heard of the publisher, and it was difficult to find actually because it's not listed on most book sites. But I did find it from a seller that I had to pay. Well, the cover price is £20, which is actually quite reasonable. It's a very, very heavy book. It's coated paper, lovely illustrated and mapped. But it's 400 pages and it weighs more than two 1,000-page hardcovers, to be honest. And I'm looking forward to reading this. I'm not sure exactly when I can get around to it because I've got a lot of other stuff on my plate at the moment to read. But here's the flavor at the back. It's sort of a detective story, a historical adventure, a meditation on love and loss. In July 1841, the poet John Clare escaped the lunatic asylum in Epping Forest and embarked on a 4-day journey to find his adored wife and muse, Mary Joyce. Without money or provisions, and lamed by a broken shoe, he endured extreme hardship to be reunited with her. But Mary had died 3 years earlier, a spinster. Clare was toiling home to a truth he would struggle to acknowledge, that his cherished memory of their marriage was a delusion. His brief account of the 85-mile trek to find her, known as the Journey Out of Essex, has fascinated readers, but turns lucid and incoherent, prosaic and poetic. It invites interpretation and reinterpretation, argument and conjecture. Using it as a guide, the author shed new light on Clare's journey and the world in which it took place, seeking out the remains of that world in the 21st century. So, being a big fan of John Clare, his poetry, and if you look in my, I guess that'd probably be author spotlights. I think playlist. You'll find like two videos of John Clare books that I have, and a little bit about John Clare. He is right up there for me for poets. So another favorite author of mine. Uh, and yeah, I looked up the website. It's www.1381.com, and they class themselves as a micro publisher of, I think, art, it says, and poetry, Cambridge based. But when you go to the publications, the only one that comes up is Love's Cold Returning. So they may have just started. I'd have to look into them closer, but I'm quite excited about it. Now, I also received a book. If you've been watching my videos, you know that for the last couple months, I've been reading a lot of African history, and specifically South African history. And it's been a passion of mine for many years. And just I received a whole bunch of books, or bought a whole bunch of books on the Zulu War that kickstarted my interest, or re-kickstarted. But a week ago, I pre-ordered a book about the First World War in Southern Africa and East Africa, and it was called Tip and Run, and it's coming out, I think, in February. £30, but I thought, oh, it's 600 pages approximately, I think. So yeah, I'll get it. Then I saw this copy for sale used. Same author. Turns out it's the same book. It's just being reprinted. This is Weidenfeld and Nicholson, published in published in 2007. And yeah, it says Tip and Run, the untold tragedy of the Great War in Africa. And I know very little of the campaign there, and I've always been interested in it, and I've never actually seen a book dedicated to it, or at least anything substantial. As I say, this is about it's almost 500 pages. But here's what it says on the flap. In the aftermath of the Great War, the East Africa campaign was destined to be dismissed by many in Britain as a remote sideshow in which only a handful of names and episodes, the Koenigsberg von Leto Vorbeck and naval expedition to Lake Tanganyika, achieved any lasting notoriety. But to the other combatant powers, Germany, South Africa, India, Belgium, and Portugal, it was and would remain a campaign of high importance. Africa quite simply muttered. And it goes on, a small war, in quotation marks, consisting of a few local fairs, in quotation marks, was all that was expected in August 1914 as Britain moved to eliminate the threat to the high seas of German naval bases in Africa. But 2 weeks after the armistice was signed in Europe, British and German troops were still at war in Africa after 4 years of what one campaign historian described as a war of extermination and attrition without parallel in modern times. The expense of the campaign to the British Empire was immense. The Allied and German butchers' bills even greater. But the most tragic consequence of the two sides' deadly game of tip and run was the devastation of an area 5 times the size of Germany, and civilian suffering on a scale unimaginable in Europe. Such was the cost of the white man's palaver. The final phase of the European conquest of Africa. And the Great War in Africa has inspired some notable fiction, including William Boyd's An Ice Cream War, C.S. Forester's The African Queen, memorably filmed with Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn, and Walter Smith's Shout at the Devil. Here, for the first time in the true story, a groundbreaking account by Edward Pace, author of the high-praised Lost Lion of Empire, The Life of Cape de Cairo, Grogan. So yeah, and yeah, I remember watching. Well, I have watched several times African Queen, love it, and I have read the C.S. Forster book. I've not read the Wilbur Smith's Shout at the Devil, but I did see the film. It's a good film as well. It was well done. The William Boyd's An Ice Cream War, I've heard of it, but I've only read a couple William Boyd's books, so I wasn't aware that this book was about the African War, so I might need to look it up, and maybe Wilbur Smith's as well. And who is Edward Pace? Was a history scholar at Cambridge and winner of the Lehman Prize. After a decade working in the city, he spent 4 years living and writing in East Africa, and was the author of the first guidebook to newly independent Eritrea. His acclaimed biography, The Last Lion of Empire, The Life of Cape de Cairo, Grogan, nominated by The Week as the best newcomer, was published in 2001. Pace is a fellow of the Royal Geographic Society and was awarded a visiting fellowship by Magdalen College, Cambridge in 2003-2004. He is married and lives in Kent. So there you go. That's Tip and Run, the untold tragedy of the Great War in Africa, which again I can't wait to get. I pre-ordered it, but as I say, for £1.50 plus shipping, I just couldn't pass up. So now comes a few other African sort of book. Well, no, first of all, let's do the non-African book. I showed, I'm not sure if I showed, but Jenny Aglo edited a group of ghost stories, and I really like her as a historian. It's the Shadow Book of Ghosts, and this was published in 1994 by Shadow and Windus. It's edited and introduced, and it's just a collection of ghostly tales. It's almost 500 pages. It has a bit of a pong to it, going back to smelling books. So I don't really care for that, but it's not very strong, so I think I'll let that pass. But I'm very pleased with the condition and the price of that. Now, let's get to some three other African books here. I bid on this on in eBay. It's not quite as they described, but I got it cheap. I think I got it for like £2 or something like that. It was the only bid, and I figured I will put it on as a bid because it was so cheap. If I got it, great. If I didn't, then I'll leave it. I'll pick it up some other time because there was copies around cheap. It's South Africa's Brave New World, the beloved country since the end of apartheid, by R.W. Johnson. So we've got 600 pages, over 600 pages about South Africa since apartheid, and this was published in 2009. So we're talking 15 years ish. Yeah, it says, the universal jubilation that greeted Nelson Mandela's inauguration as president of Africa in 1994, and the whole process by which nightmare apartheid was banished, is one of the most thrilling, hopeful stories in modern era. Peaceful, rational change was possible, as with the fall of the Berlin Wall, the weight of an oppressive history was suddenly lifted. Now, this is the kind of history I like. This is 15 years, 16 years, 15 years basically, in 600 pages. Now that's what I want. The other one, again, is South Africa, but took a bit of a risk on it because I wasn't sure, but I'm glad I got it. It's interesting. It's a history of the Boers in South Africa by George McCall Teal. And this is a reprint, a limited edition reprint. Um, Limited to 1,000 copies. And this is number 809. Originally published in 1887, and this was reprinted, third edition, Cape Town, 1973. And yeah, it's fairly well made, and it's a whole series by the looks of it, called Africana Collectania series, and they list 54 of them on here. And yes, I want them all. Which probably will never happen, but it's by C. Struick, Pty Limited, Cape Town, 1973. And yeah, so that'll be on my reading list fairly short. Probably, well, definitely before the tip and run, but hopefully not too late. So those are those. There's still a couple more. This here is Diaz. I didn't realize this was going to be a big book like this. It's a tall book, thin, but Diaz and His Successors by E. Alexin, editor. Now, basically, this is what it is. Bartholomew Diaz in 1488 rounded Africa and entered the Indian Ocean, with vital consequences for both Empire and Asia. The voyage was epoch-making. This volume, published on the 5th centenary of the voyage, contains information about the Diaz voyage and subsequent Portuguese maritime activities in South Africa waters. It includes a section on the development of Portuguese nautical science, especially of marine cartography, during the period of the discoveries and into the 17th century. As you can expect, it's a big book, and it's got like the end notes, or they're footnotes, but they're in the margin, which is kind of interesting. And it's well illustrated. It's got maps. If I can find any now, I say illustrated, and then no illustrations show up. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, it's not a big book. I wasn't expecting it to be this. I mean, it's not a thick book. It's 150 pages basically, but it is quite nice. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't that expensive anyway. So that's good. And I think this, yeah, the Boer one came, and there was another book the seller had that I couldn't pass it up. It made the shipping cheaper, but it's book collecting in South Africa. Now, how could I pass that up? It's not possible to pass that up. And it's by Grant Christensen, and I'm not I hope it should be published in South Africa. I haven't looked it up fully, but it's by RB Books, 1996. And it says published by RB Books, Spock Scottvale, printed by Kohler, Carton and Print, Pinetown. Is that South Africa? I'll have to check. But then there's second standard 800 copies in wraps, or standard edition, so there are some special limited numbers, and collector's edition 200 copies, and signed copies cased with dust wrapper and the code. But this is not signed. I didn't even look, but no, it's not signed even at the back. But yeah, it's a book collecting guide, so it's going to be topical to the area, a local area, and it says what to collect. Book collectors and lesser mortals. The property of a gentleman. South African book collectors in profile. Some specialist collections. Finding the books. Very little for sixpence. A passionate book hunter. The dealer dissected. Literature laid low. Collecting Africana. Select and survey your field. Print in Africa. African print. Book anatomy. Caring for your collection. Bibliographical reference. A library within a library. Books in the home. And some useful addresses. So, so it's, I just couldn't pass it up. It's got colored selection from books. I think it was under £10 with the shipping, because I got a deal on the shipping because I was ordering 2 other books. But yeah, so I'm very, very pleased with this. On the back, it has a bit of a description. It says, it says books are for keeps. Few South Africans have discovered the pleasure of book collecting. This little guide is designed to sharpen local interest in book collecting and to provide practical tips on how to begin. South Africa has inspired some of the finest travel books ever penned. We have a rich literature in all fields. Many of our older books are still priced well within the reach of the average collector. Book collecting in South Africa looks at why we should collect, at books in the home and the care of books, with the sourcing of books and much, much more. So I couldn't pass that. It's a slim book, but it looks like it'll be quite interesting, especially from a South African point of view. Now, that's it for the posts, I'm afraid. I don't know if I've taken a leaf out of Steve Donahue for tech. I have a I have a couple laptops, but they they don't work that well. They keep freezing, and I've had to reformat one at least twice now. I think 3 times. So I bought this little tablet that I have here. It's Highway. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's Chinese, but and it's starting to freeze up at times. And as I say, I'm having trouble playing the videos and getting them uploaded. So today is Amazon Prime Day, and I have bought a tablet for £39 and 99 pence. I should be able to make it Android. At least there's tutorials online and instruction how to do that. So I'm just going to have something as a backup. And I like the small size of them, 7 inch. I find 10 inch because I do have a 10 inch Kindle, and it's too hefty. It's too big. Once that I get that all sorted out, I'll get it, and I won't get it for a couple of weeks, I don't think. But that's today for the post and yesterday, and I am very pleased with everything. Very pleased, and I'll probably be go now either to have a nap or peruse through the book collecting or the Diaz book. Anyway, take care, BookTube. Bye.